A 2021 open letter made clear the problem Canadian journalists face when covering Palestine. Quote, anyone who has worked in a Canadian newsroom has encountered the reluctance or resistance to covering Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories. Canadian style guides still ban the use of the word Palestine in coverage. This has led to many corrections over the years. Racialized journalists have reported feeling overly scrutinized or even censored after every story pitch on this region. End quote. I also indicate that I recently worked with groups like Independent Jewish Voices to call on Canada's Revenue Agency to end the practice of Canadian charities illegally funding settlements or facilitating war crimes in Palestine. The CBC and other outlets did not cover this. Following the release of the letter I quoted from, 2 CBC journalists were told they could no longer report on Palestine. And this has been repeated time and time again. In fact, last week, a journalist, Arfa Rana, wrote about her experience being the only Muslim in her newsroom trying to provide context to CBC's coverage of Palestine-Israel. For raising the concerns she had, she was punished by her editors by being dismissed from daily pitch meetings for a few weeks. A senior producer told her that Palestine was a, quote, outdated term, end quote, like Persia. She makes no mention of that senior producer receiving any sort of punishment. Who knows? Maybe he even received a bonus. She wrote, quote, when crimes against humanity are being committed, there is no such thing as both sides to a story. There is only the truth. Her treatment by CBC executives led to her resigning her position. The CBC is worse off as a result. When we're talking about a crisis of reputation, we're also talking about CBC's coverage of what's happening in Palestine right now. I know that the editorial line needs to be separate from your side of things, but what can the next president of the CBC do to ensure that journalists aren't being silenced, stifled, or that both siding a genocide isn't happening from our public broadcaster?
We work very, very hard to support all of our journalists, irrespective of their backgrounds, and we have journalistic standards and practices that are transparent, that we respect, and that we have 2 ombudsmen to ensure that they are respected in all of our news coverage.